Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Debate podcast by Android Authority, discussing topics in Android every single week. I am, of course, your host for the FDP, Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And we have another Monday release for the Friday Debate. Sorry about that. We did have late releases for this and the previous podcast, and I apologize for that, but that's just how busy Mobile World Congress was in Barcelona, Spain this year. We had last week me trying to get the editing done while covering some of the biggest products that we had at the show. And then this past weekend, all five of us in total who worked MWC were traveling back to our respective homes after finishing the show. We, of course, were able to cover a lot of great products at MWC, and that is exactly what the topic of this particular podcast is. I just want to give a quick shout out to the 5 total people who we had at MWC, including myself. We had Bogdan, who is one of our lead editors, and he did a great job at the helm, making sure that we had some great articles for you at AndroidAuthority.com. We had Ash, who made the great History of Nexus video, and we got to meet him for the first time and see him at work. It was wonderful to have him as a presence there, and he was able to get some wonderful shots of not just the products, but of ourselves. We were able to get some nice B-roll from him for a reel that is upcoming. Then, of course, we have Lanh, who was able to split the work with me, and thus we allowed each other to relax a little bit at what was a pretty busy trade show. And then finally, we have Darcy, our editor-in-chief and co-founder of Android Authority. Those last two, Lanh and Darcy, are our guests for this Friday Debate podcast as we crowded around the microphone in the apartment that we stayed at. And I thought it was a nice way to commemorate the place we stayed at because, well, we rarely ever get to stay at the same place twice when it comes to these trade shows. But we talk about our favorite things, let's say, from MWC, and we also talk a little bit about our lives. You don't get to hear from Darcy too often, so it's nice to hear how he feels about, let's say, video games and how he doesn't really get them right now. Our conversation gets off the rails a couple of times, but either way, we are able to talk about our favorite things from the Mobile World Congress 2015 in Barcelona, Spain, and I hope you get to enjoy it. I just want to get some housekeeping done before we get started. You can follow Android Authority on all of the social media websites, Android Auth on Twitter, Android Authority on Instagram, and then, of course, Android Authority on Google+, AndroidAuthority.com, and our forums, and most of you are probably watching this right now on our YouTube channel, where you can follow people like me, Ash, and Lanh. To those of you who are watching the YouTube version of this podcast, please remember that while we put that up there for a courtesy for those of you who aren't on podcast networks, those are the best ways of listening to the FDP. Get on Pocket Casts, on iTunes, on Stitcher, anyone that you need in order to get your hands and your ears onto the Friday Debate podcast. From there, we do have some social media for our guest. Lanh is at Nguyen1 on Twitter, and Darcy, though he does not really do social media very often, he did tell me to just say to everybody, if you want to follow Darcy and see what he's up to nowadays, you can just follow Android Authority. Without any further ado, we're going to jump into this, the 7th episode of the Friday Debate podcast, our post-Mobile World Congress conversation with Lanh Nguyen and Darcy Couvée. It's all good. So, Darcy's never been on a podcast before.
Weird.
It's really just talking, but obviously, you know, it's
so much meta.
Yeah, it's just a piece of content too. But so you have to think about what you're saying, obviously. So,
before you talk,
or
not.
There's always going to be a difference to it. Yeah. Exactly. But it's nice. We're in such a good place. So in our apartment and just yeah.
It is recording though, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so you're gonna... Mm-hmm. We're just rolling?
Yeah, we're just rolling.
I thought so.
This is how it is.
It sounded more mature.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, roll with the punches.
Man. Yeah, you gotta roll with it. Be natural. That's all it's gotta be.
It really changes the course of what's on my mind.
See, that's why I don't like doing the canned intros anymore. That's exactly what I was saying. Because then I spent about a minute and a half just saying all of the logistics and all of the housekeeping and all that.
That's cool. I mean, I personally, the person who's been doing this for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You always try and find things that are going to get you excited.
Yeah.
Even rob the scale out of Honda there because I'm trying to get...
Honda or?
Honda.
Oh, okay.
The Honda Sonata I was talking to David Ruddock from Android Police last night at the dinner, and he was saying that they're sending him a Hyundai Sonata for a week to review.
Nice.
So I was emailing Rob, and I was like, "Hey man, come on." Because they used some of your B-roll on like CNBC.
They
or something.
did, yeah. But they did ask, thankfully.
They
like,
did.
That was good, yeah.
I didn't see it.
From the auto interview?
Yeah, from our the one we double teamed on.
yeah.
That was
It was on
a great
national
video.
television, man.
Yeah, I love that video. That was one of my favorite ones that we shot there.
So clear.
Yeah. It was so cool, and that was the one that proved that my new lens was really good for interviews. I was like, sweet. But yeah, your B-roll shots on that were really awesome.
Plus, we had like 3-4 angles going on. Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like you're holding that one camera, then the tripod, and then I had the tripod back there.
Yeah.
It just looked really dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's why it was so good to have like Ash here. You know,
Yeah.
like regards to Ash, he's probably like, he's not in the air anymore, is he? He's probably back home by now.
Probably.
Because he just go back to London.
Yeah, he gets home by like 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. So what time is it? Oh yeah, he's in the air right now then.
Yeah,
So-
and I think London's time is it on the same time zone as Barcelona?
I think it's back 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 1 or 2 hours. But I'm terrible at geography, so it's not.
I always have to search like whenever I talk to Bogdan, I'm like time Romania.
Well, I was trying to tell my girlfriend and parents like when to watch the live stream that was just on like an hour ago, and I had to Google what time is it in California when it's 8 p.m. in Barcelona or something.
Yeah, there's a really great website for that time beat. It allows you to. It has like a flexible meter, and you just.
I didn't even look at the Google Now card. That's what I should have done because it didn't really happen. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a long day, and I'm happy that you got to kick it today and like go places. Like you got a lot of souvenirs and stuff.
Yeah. Just one for me, and then a few for my friends. But I mean,
is what you got different from what you got for everyone else?
I got myself that hat.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So you're gonna walk around Kansas City like that's right.
Yeah.
You were one of a kind.
I wore it for a little bit, like when we were at Catalonia, but I was like, man, I don't want to look like a tourist, so I'm putting it away.
You gotta. Well, yeah. I guess when you look around, you don't really see people wearing stuff like that, huh?
No.
Yeah. No natives.
I don't think people from Barcelona wear Barcelona stuff. Unless it's like soccer, I guess.
They don't
Just
want
like, please pick my pockets.
It's just nobody reps their own city.
Yeah.
And when I see people wearing California stuff in California, it always.
Do you remember in Hong Kong we went to California Burger and it was like an exact replica of what's it called? In-N-Out.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Cali Burger, they do the one thing In-N-Out won't do, and that's put bacon in their burgers. That's the only thing that's missing. It's so bad.
You ever been to Shake Shack?
I love it. There's one in Vegas now.
I mean, all these case studies are going out all the time, but why it's so much better and why it's just, it has nothing to do with phones. But,
That's fine.
I've just been reading all about it and I watched all these videos and it looks epic. And they have a secret menu like In-N-Out. So.
Yeah. Oh, Shake Shack is great.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Every CES we should go there because they have it at New York now.
Oh, man. I'm
Yeah,
so
I
hungry.
need to try it. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah. But it's literally only in New York, huh?
It's a huge phenomenon.
Yeah. It's a huge
A little pricier.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're hopefully going to get a nice bite to eat a little bit later. I mean,
Well, we will.
Yeah, Barcelona is really great for all the food and everything, but it can be kind of tough to figure out where to go because Barcelona people, that sounded bad. People in Barcelona don't like Yelp or they don't do any of that stuff.
I went to a place on the first night I was with my father and I was like, yeah, I'll take us somewhere nice. And then, my dad was like, well, why don't we ask the taxi driver where he would take his wife? Mm-hmm. And so he ended up taking us to like his favorite restaurant. And they had this menu and they just kept bringing the seafood. They had lobster and, endless amounts of seafood. And I know you don't like crustaceans and stuff. You have to use the jackhammer to open them. They have steaks and stuff there.
I like them, but I don't like working for them.
So when did you... Yeah, exactly. Like when we were at La Paradeta yesterday, when they put the crabs in front of you, did you... Like, you're like, no, I don't want that.
No crab. But, I mean, everything that we had was perfect because
big thing is tuna steak.
Yeah,
with the lemon and garlic bread and some
and then
San Miguel.
Nicole, God bless her, from Mobile Geek, she was the one who basically picked everything out. She saw everything. She's like, razor clam, yes.
Oh, she's got great taste in food. I mean, she lives in Taiwan,
Yeah,
and they have crazy good culinary scene there in Taipei.
Totally. And we've been very blessed to be able to hang out with them a lot during the show. Honestly, like that's the experience that I'm always looking forward to having with like you, Ash, anybody else that's around. It's like be friends, have friends in the industry because it's so much fun to have them around. It
makes them every year, you gotta be friends.
Yeah.
And honestly, frankly, like the work we do is so highly specialized. Mm-hmm. Like Nicole always reached out to me with like some complex thing. I mean, in the beginning, when things got started, I would always reach out to them, and they helped me so much.
Yeah,
you know?
they are. Like I've told you already, Nicole and Sasha are my oldest friends in the industry.
Yeah.
They really are.
I guess you would have met first time you would have met them. The first event was CES.
We met at CES, but we didn't really connect until MWC.
Yeah,
but when I really got to know Sasha was at I/O.
Google I/O.
Yeah, he just came up to me and he complimented me on my S4 review, and we just started talking about it. So yeah, that was such a good time. But yeah, we got to hang out with them a lot, and obviously we all get to see all the same stuff at the show, so everyone's got their own opinions about. I know he's trying to put the can down so lightly.
I didn't hear it. Mr. Zoom over here didn't hear it.
I got one ear in right now, so don't worry. I'll let you know if it's too bad, but it's not going to be that bad.
Just don't want to slam it down.
Should have a soundboard.
Yeah, right.
On a separate note, just reminded me of something. So, I love the S4 compared to the S5, but what I didn't know, and I don't think a lot of people know, is that the product team that designed the S6 was the same product team that worked on the S4.
That makes a lot of sense.
So now they have the S5 team is working on the S7. And so what they do is they kind of also populate talent. But they move it around a little bit. But my point is that there's such a long lead up, cycle.
Yeah.
It takes them so long to manufacture and design these devices that, I just don't think I didn't know that. For example, did you?
No, I didn't know that at all. It kind of makes sense though.
So it's not the same group of people every time, or there's a core group and then they just kind of switch.
They have like a primary core group.
That's like having so many different Final Fantasies.
It makes me think of Call of Duty because there's like two separate companies that make Call of Duty games.
Yeah.
So that affects how good the games are.
What was the original Modern Warfare? It was like Treyarch. Those were great. And then once Treyarch left, then it just turned into what it was.
Yeah. Can we talk about video games for a bit?
Yeah, sure.
Because I would love to have the time, PC hardware when I was growing up, 14, 15, it started getting really exciting. Even before your guys' time, I got a 3DFX card. It was a big deal because it was the first 3D accelerated GPU, and that's kind of what began my passion with technology.
Yeah, totally.
And it was a really big deal, But video games, the last time I got a chance to play them, they were so immersive. I remember they had finally designed an engine. I think it was Battlefield Bad Company. They designed an engine that you could actually blow up environments, and you could blow up buildings with a rocket launcher. And that was the first time. But I know that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
6. Not
6
sex.
appeal.
6 years ago.
6 appeal.
That's a long time.
6 appeal, right?
But what is gaming like now?
So there's this weird disconnect from what used to be just all about creating an experience that everybody would love, and then all of these artistic. It's all about this artistic movement, like the Order 1886 that just recently came out. It's not a great gameplay experience, but it's a great cinematic experience. It's a moving movie, it's an interactive movie. But there are ones like that, and then you have iterations like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Madden, and
Madden 2018.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's this disconnect now from it because all video games used to be everyone had this passion and this drive to go in a certain direction, but now everyone has the freedom to go wherever they want. So
but
there's so much diversity. They are very awesome because of the technology that we have, but there are still pitfalls because sometimes the people who create the video games, they don't realize that maybe they do. Obviously they do, but not everybody is going to like every video game now.
Yeah.
Not the way that we have nostalgia, talking about, Super Mario, GTA 3, in that era.
San Andreas.
Yeah.
Oof, big deal.
Yeah, for me, Mega Man,
Mega Man. Oh, you're old school.
Oh, I love it.
Do they have modern Mega Mans now?
No, not really.
You could do so much cool shit.
Well, Capcom's doing terrible things to Mega Man. They don't do it very often.
Capcom still makes games?
Oh, yeah.
Because I see Sega, right? We were talking to Sega, they used to be a dominant hardware company, before we did the interview with Imagination, their GPU was in the Dreamcast, and I don't know if you guys remember the Dreamcast, but it was groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
It was right after, it was a big device after the SNES,
it was around the time of the PS1.
Oh, it was,
yeah.
And it just got destroyed by the PS1.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because it was generations, it was sort of behind in terms of hardware, and the graphics weren't as good or whatever. So.
Yeah, there were definitely some pitfalls with it.
And you got a PS4 and you have the Z3 and the Z3 Compact and the tablet.
Yeah.
What's it like gaming on?
It's pretty cool, but there's a bit of latency depending on your enough so that you shouldn't be playing things like Call of Duty because you will not be successful.
Yeah.
But things like a Dragon Age or like a long form story driven game. Yeah, that would be a lot better. Yeah. So I didn't realize there was Imagination in Dreamcast.
Yeah, Imagination in Dreamcast.
Yeah. We had that interview with them.
I guess it's I've kind of binge played games. I like those tower defense games because they make me feel like God. You know, and I'm just like, and you get to the point where like there's so many things coming, but you're like, you make it so much funny, and like you keep building back the defense, and then like the big dudes will come along and they're like indestructible, and like, you'll lose because you're conceited, like I get sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Not a whole lot of gaming presence here at
well,
MWC.
GDC happened at the same time as MWC.
Yeah.
And like I was talking to ARM and they had dual presences going on. And I'd love to go to GDC. That would be like a treat and a half. You get to see the future of gaming, you see all those new trailers, and they do it big. But unfortunately, you know, we can't clone ourselves quite yet.
I mean, not quite yet. We're not there with technology yet. But we see so much about like putting ourselves in somewhere different, you know, like those weird trolley, or what is it, like what was the term, like it's a tablet on top of a Segway, and yeah,
I
don't remember what
weird,
the term
like, floaty,
is.
Yeah. I don't know, but they do like location independent video conferencing.
Yeah, who knows, maybe that'll be the future.
There was one on Kickstarter. It was Android powered, and it was a robot that had video conferencing capabilities. It was on wheels, and it also had an arm that you could articulate from your phone. And it was I think it went crazy viral. I don't really know or remember the name, unfortunately. I can look it up right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just thought it was super cool. Anyway.
Oh, no, I meant you're fine on the noise. You're fine.
Sorry. I'm
you want to look it up?
My first podcast guy. I'm just trying to pay attention to the rules.
It's really nice to see like where things are going. At the very least, after doing this for a little while now, I mean, it's good to come to a thing like MWC and see that you still see progress happening. You still are excited for what's coming up, because sometimes it wouldn't really. You might not have that connection with what's happening. I mean, Lanh, you and I, we've had our hands on so many phones by this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and then it almost kind of like you see these things and you almost feel a little desensitized by it all.
Exactly.
After you see them, and I don't know, you kind of expect your mind to just be blown, but at the end of it all, it's just like you're just like, well, it was cool.
Do your buddies ask you what phone they should buy?
Yeah, sometimes. Like my roommate right now he's been debating like real hard about what to get. He's like, should I wait or should I get the Nexus 6 or whatever? And he actually watched like your like Nexus 6 versus iPhone 6 video, because he's been debating between those two phones, and I'm like,
the thing is, I don't make a statement of you should just buy this one, you know. So he probably was like, why did he?
And then I tell him, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't want to tell you what phone to get, because like you ultimately have to make that decision.
Exactly.
And, like he loves Android. He's always been an Android user, but I told him if you can deal with the size of the Nexus 6, then go with the Nexus 6 if you can put up with it. But I don't want to tell him one way or another. Yeah,
that's a good line to toe, honestly.
Yeah.
I think. But you know, and good. So now we're able to get into the meat of the thing. Like, what would you? I'll frame it this way: if someone asks you what phone of MWC to get, what would you tell them? But basically, it's me asking you, what's your favorite thing here? Well, what was your favorite MWC thing here, man?
I mean, I guess I have to go with the Edge. I really like the S6
Really
Edge.
though?
Yeah. It's a tough call.
It is a tough call.
Yeah, it is.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to pick between the two, but I mean, I was really excited for the S6 in general, like before we got here, because I felt like Samsung really had a good thing on their hands. Like they were really going to hit it out of the park, and I think they did. Even though, you know, like a lot of people are feeling indifferent or whatever about it because of all the changes, but
or lack thereof.
Yeah.
What it used to be a lack thereof.
Yeah.
It's a rectangle. I mean, designers are working
It's a slab.
within a limited space.
Yeah. Only you can only do so much with what you have.
I think they hit it out of the park.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, you know, as a technology enthusiast, you know, I've never really been too into software. And I know software is the magic that makes it all work. But, like, I follow the supply line and the research. Like, I was reading about DDR4 on mobile devices, like, back in 2011, 2010. Because, of course, we have DDR5, you know, our GPUs and our computers and everything. But they were unable to kind of hit that right power envelope. But, you know, the benchmark is starting to come out, and it's more than a 2 times increased performance over DDR3, and it's the world's first device. And that's just one first. Second first, 14 nanometer SoC from Exynos. I mean, they beat Apple, Apple's really kind of, I wouldn't say in trouble.
Are you thinking in benchmark scores? Is that what you're saying? Or
no, just in terms of the memory throughput.
Okay.
On the memory, it's just twice as much data, and it uses less power per bit.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah, I know that part.
But the 14 nanometers to see, like Samsung was supposed to do that same size of SoC for Apple for their A9, but they chose to actually keep it for themselves. And that's why Apple's investing billions of dollars in Israel right now, because they're building their own foundry there for the next SoC they're going to use, with Imagination as well.
Oh, yeah. Because they do Power VR.
Exactly, yeah. They've used it always, for so long. The camera is really interesting, because I know they spent billions on ISOCELL.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, well, is it possible that we have an ISOCELL camera, but they're just not? Yeah, right. They're just not saying that.
The 8-megapixel front-facing camera is going to hit the market soon, but Samsung and Sony are kind of like in a big battle. It's one of Sony's few profitable arms is their image sensor division. But yeah, they just can't do OIS with ISOCELL, so
that's true.
They had to use the Sony sensor for it, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome, man. Like 0.7 seconds, it's really fast.
Samsung knows their cameras anyway, so
yeah. That's what happened to me the last couple of days. My OnePlus One died while we were trying to figure our way back here to this house, and so I had a bunch of phones in my bag, and I just was like, okay, I'll just swap the SIM out, and I started using the Galaxy Note 4, and oh my goodness, you often forget being who we are, how awesome certain phones are until you come back to it one day. Like I'm holding it right now.
Yeah.
I love the way this feels. It's a great executive look. No bamboo, but whatever.
You could get a bamboo back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got
There's a lot of aftermarket stuff for that. So.
Exactly, yeah. I'd probably just go out to Hong Kong or something and find it.
And that's actually a really good segue into a big point of contention, which is, one of the critical features that people loved about Samsung devices is the micro SD and the removable battery.
Exactly.
I got a lot of emails from a lot of people about, you got to talk to Samsung and make sure they don't butcher the Note 5. If they bring over what they did to the S6...
Because it's up to Darcy.
Well, yeah, and I'm like, hold on, let me call Dr. Samsung. It's like, call my bat phone, No, I mean, but what do you think? Are they going to bring over the design changes that they did with the S6 to the Note series?
No, I don't, actually.
I don't think they could.
I don't think they will.
Insane if they did.
I think they'll find a way to merge the two, because we were making this point before that the Note line is the flagship line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the S line is like the experimental line in a way. They change it up. Like obviously the S6 now feels like a well thought out, fully put together phone. But features that people really want always end up on the Notes. The Notes are the phones to beat usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking they might do the same thing with the Note line, just because I feel like if they don't, there's going to be an inconsistency in design. Like you have this phone that's unibody, and then you have this phone that's not unibody, removable back, SD card slot, whatever. I just feel like it's not, because like usually OEMs like to make their design consistent across all devices, and I feel like they're going to lose that consistency if they don't do that with the Note line.
It's such a huge company with so many lines, though, at this point, because after this came out, and then people were had a lackluster response to the S5. All of a sudden, the Alpha came out. Now the A3.
Yeah, they really started turning it out and freaking out.
Exactly.
And a mass defection has occurred within Samsung at SEA, which is, for those that don't know, they have the primary brain trust in the States in Texas, like a lot of companies, and you have Qualcomm out of there, you have ZT out of there, a lot of ARM operations are out of there. And, they moved everyone up to New Jersey, but kind of the gossip from the smartphone industry is that they sent over their whole executive team to do an audit on Samsung in the States, because they were unsure why things were going so successfully. And they credited, the success of the Galaxy franchise due to the efforts of the US team. And so there was a lot of mistrust, and, a lot of kind of, Harvard business journals and others who, they deal with operational and organizational behavior. They study kind of Korean companies, and it's really tough to work for a Korean company. They will only kind of promote Koreans, and there's kind of that little bit of xenophobic, I wouldn't say racism, but like kind of distrust, and so, but a lot of good people, who work in this industry obviously work for Samsung, but there's been a lot of change, that we've seen in terms of people moving to different companies. And like when we were in China, remember Josh, for Huawei?
Yeah, exactly.
We saw that he was a veteran designer.
That's the first time. Well, as my voice cracks. Yeah. That was the first time I ever like witnessed that firsthand.
What was that?
Like I guess I don't want to say defection.
Yeah,
it has a negative connotation.
Strong
to
word.
It.
Sounds like like you're like leaving an army.
I know, right?
And like you're a traitor. Like,
I'm
going
sure
to a
that.
new
Well, I mean,
country.
I'm sure the people at the original company view it that way, maybe.
Yeah.
But to see the shuffling of people from one place to the other,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of odd to see.
People want to be happy, you know. They want to be able to grow, and I mean, like look at the rise and fall of giants like Nokia or like BlackBerry, you know.
Well, argue. People are going to argue that Nokia is not really like falling. I suppose
Nokia's done.
They're just Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean they're like micro Nokia soft.
Micro Kia.
Nice.
a two-door car. So it's interesting to see that, but you know somehow they've nailed the design. I'm talking about the S6. We'll get to that later, obviously. But so the Edge really is your favorite one?
Yeah, I like that it's a little bit different. It's not, you know.
But how useful is it really going to be to you?
I don't think it'll be useful at all.
There you go.
I just like the curved edges because it makes the swiping really seamless, and it's a different design. Like, you know, every phone basically all looks the same, but I don't know. The Edge kind of adds a little bit of flair to it, and I don't know.
See,
I like it as a design aesthetic.
The people have spoken. The demand is higher for it in terms of YouTube view counts. It's totally scientific.
The people are curious, is what they are.
Do you remember the Note Edge first impressions you did? They
Yeah.
did like 1.8 million in like a month.
Yeah,
and
they
it vastly exceeded the Note 4.
4. Yeah. I mean, but it's more okay. Just putting this out there. I know I'm not. This isn't a race between me and Lanh.
It's a race.
This isn't a race. Okay, to that point, we're neck and neck. I'm just saying. But it's curiosity. I can almost guarantee you that the number of people who looked at the Edge videos did not buy the Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't sell at all.
Right, exactly. And while it may be different for this S6 Edge, which is the worst name because it's hard to say without doing that. Sixth Edge.
Yeah.
It's there are going to be more people who buy it, but you know, there's still a lot of curiosity behind it. And I agree with you. They nailed the edges.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these, they nailed the two sides in terms of making it an attractive device that still doesn't feel like a weird thing to hold, like the Note Edge was. That was just weird. But I would rather, I say this all the time, I would rather pay for the features I'm going to use rather than the features I won't. And that's why up until this point, I have never actually bought a Samsung phone. I've never actually thought I would. But but for me, the S6, I'd buy that thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't bought a Samsung phone since the S2 because I love the S2, and I still think that the S2 is Samsung, one of Samsung's biggest phones till this day. And you know, the S3, S4, S5 lost my attention, but the S6 and the S6 Edge, that's how they sort of
back,
got
right? Yeah.
They've pulled me back in, and I'm interested now. So. I don't know. I just think the S6 Edge is just a more unique product, and that's kind of what I want. I want something a little bit different. I don't want something that feels the same.
It's just such a funny conversation to have, just to say, "Oh, those edges look so cool, man! Like, what do they do?" And you're like, "Who cares?"
Yeah.
Flip it over, you scratch your screen, and you watch the orange thing go.
You watch the LED import tuner car thing happen on the bottom.
Yeah. And the thing that, you know, like I kind of like it. You know, I don't think Samsung would have done this S6 Edge if they didn't think it was going to succeed. Yeah. Because the Note Edge.
How do you explain the Note Edge? I'm just saying.
Yeah, the Note Edge was definitely an experiment.
Okay.
But I think if the Note Edge didn't do all that well, they wouldn't have done an S6 Edge. So
I think they saw the curiosity and they iterated on it.
Okay, yeah,
it's evolution, not revolution.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
I've been saving that for a while.
He thought about it on the plane ride over like a week ago.
I've been writing my haikus, man.
This is the thing that I keep thinking about the Edge, is that it's just going to become a ticker tape. Yeah, it's going to become a ticker tape for advertisements.
Yeah.
And I really do.
You can get a subsidized phone, man. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Google, right? I mean, people, and same too with people who use internet. Like, if something's free, you're the product.
Yeah.
And obviously, it has nothing to do with hardware, but, you know, you look at models like Xiaomi and stuff like that, you know, they're not making any money. It's a $45 billion company. Same with OnePlus. They're making like $5-6 per unit, you know, which is nothing. It's not enough to sustain a business. So they were last night at the dinner with SwiftKey. They were very kind to invite us to a lovely dinner. They were talking about their keyboard, and they're the most successful keyboard that's never paid for installs or anything, and they're used by millions, if not hundreds of millions of people on a daily basis. But OnePlus made the decision to push out SwiftKey on an OTA, and it earned the ire of like the most evangelist users. They're like, "Why are you forcing me to use a particular keyboard?" And I don't know if there's
so it replaces a bit. It is a
stock
built-in
keyboard.
Yeah,
they've made it built in.
Yeah.
And it's software and information and people. Like it's a gray area. Like the legal frameworks aren't there yet, and there's a lot of. Like you go to a website and there's like some of the more advanced websites like TechCrunch or anything from Mail or Vox, like they have 50, 60 trackers on them and they sell that data back. So hardware companies, as things become further commodified, are going to have to do things like this, with data, and it's a gray area.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But then but doesn't that make sense then that the edge one day might just become a place of advertising?
Hell yeah, man.
That's like when you turn on a game. Oh God, this is a nightmare scenario. You turn on a game, and while you're playing it, because the edge is away from your face, that's the perpetual ad. That you can hit X on, but then it'll keep appearing there in the ticker tape. That's what I keep thinking.
Yeah.
So that's terrifying. There's already a case that makes me not believe in the edge, and that's when you're trying to use the camera. Now I got a lot of shade for saying that the ergonomics on the no edge camera were bad.
People ripped you apart.
But I don't like it there. I don't. I really don't. You can change the controls.
It's more pronounced curved, isn't it, than the edge?
It might be. Yeah.
It's a lot more pronounced.
I mean, you have it over here somewhere, but yeah,
the Note Edge, not the
I even
S6
been looking
edge.
at it. I wonder, like, if you're playing a game or something, like, is it going... They told me that the panel is the exact same size. They just flex the panel around.
Like 800 degrees to go like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll change operation.
No, it won't change operation. That's just going to be where the annoying bits are.
Yeah. Sounds like some premium ad space to me.
Yeah. That's exactly that's what I'm expecting.
Of course they won't do it, Josh, man. They would have such a backlash. Samsung's the most high-profile manufacturer.
I guess I'm a little cynical because I've seen a lot of places like just all of a sudden, boop, like this ad in my face.
Yeah.
And but from an ergonomical standpoint, I guess the only place that I would be really skeptical about is the camera. But I didn't get to look at the camera on the S6 Edge. Was it on the Edge?
Yeah, no. The UI was exactly the same as it was on the S6.
Oh, thank God.
So the camera shutter button is still right in the middle of the screen.
Oh, thank God. I should have asked you that before because you're the one that did the Edge.
Yeah.
I should have asked you that before.
Yeah, I remember it clearly because I was playing around with it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You did our color comparison.
Yeah.
So I did it on the S6, but
yeah.
So you think that it would? So aside from just it being different, everything that it offers, you would use on the daily, and you would pay for that on the daily.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to use the People Edge or that little ticker on the daily, but I don't know. I'd have to see when I actually have like one and I use it for a while. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to say now, but I don't know. That People Edge might be useful, especially for anybody I talk to a lot. So
yeah,
but I don't know. I'm pretty old school and I just search in the Contacts app or something. But
yeah, that's fair.
It's going to take some getting used to because any of these new features, like you sort of have to force yourself to want to use them before you can even figure out if they're useful. Because if you don't ever try to use them, you're just gonna be like, they're just whatever. Like,
yeah,
it's not that.
The People Edge, it's so cool. I could just like whoop, and then someone's calling me. I see the light, blah blah blah. But then you realize no one calls me.
Yeah. Do you guys do voice calls anymore?
Not really.
No, very rarely.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can still. There's text messages and stuff there too. But there's one thing that I noticed that I don't think anybody's really talked about, and I kind of saw this when we were filming some extra footage for some other video.
with Samsung seasonal workers just breathing down our necks.
They look so happy.
But the cool thing is that I sort of saw was because you get that one tab to slide over for the People Edge or the ticker, but if like more tabs show up if like you get because you have the 5 people and each tab will show up depending on the person. So like if the first person at the top of your list shows up, you'll get a tab right there. And like you have a missed call or a text message from them, a tab will show up and you just slide over and just go right to the message or call them right from there instead of pulling down the notification shade and tabbing it
That's
from there.
one way of looking at it.
So additional tabs will show up, which I thought was kind of cool.
Why can't it just be a notification center then? You know,
I don't know.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
I think that's just Samsung's way of forcing you to use the edge more by having your missed calls and texts from your 5 favorite people show up on the edge.
Yeah.
So it kind of forces you to use it.
That's not bad at all. That's I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just something I wouldn't use, and that's my point. But, you know, it's funny, we're having Darcy here, and I already noticed that you have so much business talk to put out there. We're the consumer guys, and you know so much about the inner workings of the industry.
I mean, you know, a passion becomes an obsession and becomes, you know, the means through which one lives life, you know?
Yeah.
If my livelihood, our livelihoods are on the line. But it's not that extreme anymore because, you know, we're very grateful to have a big audience and all that. But it's just a matter of producing a really consistently excellent product.
Yeah,
an information product for people so they can make, you know, objective decisions. And it all sounds like BS, but I mean, the competition is fierce. You know, the tech space, like I was reading today, even Business Insider, they're producing a spin-off tech-specific publication that's going to launch in a few months now. The interest towards technology is growing. Technology is addictive. It's redefining, disintermediating and disrupting so many verticals. Financial sector is going to disappear. Legal professions, medical. I mean, look at the Oculus Rift. Look at the HTC Vive. You know, Five. Sorry, yeah. I'm part French. So.
Vive la
Quebec. Vive. But what I'm trying to say is, like,
c'est la vive.
None of us are going to have jobs in the future. So there'll be like a robot video review. Be like, hello.
Oh, man. I've had
MWC 2029.
I've had conversations
Robot
with...
slider shots.
Hell yeah. How many times can you do? He doesn't get tired.
There's just a robot. There's just a robot doing that right there.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people about that. Like, what if a machine is able to do our jobs? Because we have such creative jobs.
It would have like a Terminator hand, like T-1000, like melted into the fire.
That would be so terrifying. But I just think it's really interesting. This is a refreshing change of pace from like the consumer-driven talks that we always have on the podcast. So, like, given that, you know, because we did interviews, I filmed you interviewing ARM and Imagination. Yeah. You have talked with a number of companies here about what I don't want to say little, but like what enhancements they're bringing to the fundamentals of the smartphone world and the computing world in general. Mm-hmm. So, with that in mind, what's your MWC pick? What's your favorite thing here?
I mean, I'm obviously going to have to say the Galaxy S6 line. Mm-hmm. But in particular, it's not even the line itself. It's just the hardware that they put in there. You know, like, Samsung is a massive company. It's probably one of the largest world technology companies in the world. And they just have so much incredible research and development. You know, most companies, like, they spend 6, 7, 8% on research and development. But Samsung is like probably like 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And I mean, they produce SoCs for Apple.
And then the rest is marketing.
Displays for Apple. Same with LG.
Yeah.
I mean, they produce the largest container ships in the world. Their whole heavy duty equipment division line is massive. I mean, there's not really a vertical that they don't touch except for like financial services and entertainment. And they're trying to get their milk video stuff off the line, but, you know, they're struggling quite a bit because it's hard to create an ecosystem. But yeah, I mean, just that Exynos SoC, man. I mean, yeah, they're going to use Qualcomm radios for the States.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a massive reduction going from 20 nanometer to 14 nanometer. That lowers the power footprint by 30% with the same processing.
But what explains why Samsung was able to achieve a 14 nanometer when we have a company like Qualcomm who's been doing this for so long, and they haven't been? They're not the ones who have that buzzword now.
I mean, so the reason why I like to talk to ARM and Imagination, even though nobody really cares about them, you know, in terms of consumers, is that they create the intellectual property that these companies license out. And Qualcomm is obviously a leading partner of ARM. They pay a lot of money to be able to get early access to those reference designs to produce their Snapdragon series.
Yeah.
But so does Exynos and so does Samsung. So the thing that differentiates Qualcomm and Samsung is that Samsung actually has their own foundries. Qualcomm doesn't. Qualcomm just produces like designs.
Yeah.
And just like an AutoCAD that they like email. They're like, hey, yo, can you print this, man? You know, the bill comes, it's like, that'll be $14 billion. But then Qualcomm will go and make $80 billion.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I mean, DDR4 and, you know, the display 600 nits, you know, the sub-diamond pixel arrangement for that AMOLED, like, you know, 570 PPI. That's the highest, or 577, I think?
577.
577.
Highest in the industry. It's a bit ridiculous, but, you know, when I was
Well, I mean, the margin of error, you could say 575 and still be right. You know?
I don't know. I saw pixels when I tried the new. I don't know if you could see them when we tried the new Gear VR. I could see the pixels.
Yeah, I guess I could say that I saw them too. But I mean, the screen's like 2 inches from your face.
I could see the pixels,
and it's being blown up to a giant 3D world. So it's like, you know, of course you're going to see something. But I don't know. It looked good to me though. It was my first time.
Yeah.
So
they use the Galaxy S6 for that too.
Yeah, they do now. Yeah.
It's really immersive. I mean, obviously VR is going to be absolutely massive, and it's going to ruin people in terms of social behavior and stuff.
So for you, I mean, Gear VR updated to take the S6. Obviously, that's great.
Yeah.
But for you, it's the S6 line in terms of what puts it together.
It's the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Which are the eggheads and the nerds. Who are the geniuses. The research that comes from universities that eventually translates into the experiences that we're all very fortunate to have. But I mean, there's so many industry firsts packed into one device, and it's all in a beautiful form factor that shows Samsung finally listened to consumers.
Yeah.
And like they've been slapped around by the backhand of God, which is, angry consumers who expected something better. And a corollary note that I think is really interesting, having studied like the analytics and metrics, which I have to, so that we can continue to keep the lights on,
of course.
is that year after year, I continue to see less demand for this information, and we have commanded like a very fortunate ranking and position on YouTube. And, I study everything, but like, the Note 4 launch, like those videos, they hit beyond 1 million in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. I can't say exactly, but I remember for the S5, like all I'm trying to say is that there's just a little bit less demand every year. It's probably like 10-15%, but it compounds over time, and it peaks with the S3, and now it's just it's just dwindling down. I mean, it's still huge, but I just think consumers, like, the experiences are all so good, that they don't necessarily, and not only that, but like what OnePlus did with disrupting, how people perceive they can get a great device for a sub-$300 price point. Yeah. So manufacturers are under a lot of pressure, to differentiate themselves, and I kind of feel bad for HTC in a way. And a lot of, tech media is talking about how HTC's thunder was completely stolen by Samsung.
I would see that's where I come in, because I would actually think that while not necessarily in the mobile space, HTC found a way to bring back all of the talk to them. Because
you think so?
Yes, because of the Vive.
Oh yeah,
absolutely
totally true. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So HTC, they brought out the One M9, which I spent a lot of time with at frequencies, and it's a incremental iteration, obviously, but much like a lot of these phones are, which is why the Galaxy S6 got such play, because it actually felt very different from what we're used to, or let's just say expected from Samsung. That's sort of a great way to put it. But with HTC, they came out with a wearable, and
what's that like?
It was it's a band, it's a fitness band, and there's, in a lot of ways, it's not really something that the masses are going to flock to, because it requires a very specific person who needs something like that.
Someone who exercises?
Perhaps, maybe. Probably, someone who just wants to know how many steps that they want. But their partnership with Under Armour is what's most interesting about that. And then the one M9 is, again, incremental, but went in the right direction. We have to reserve our camera opinions until the software is fully fleshed out.
Everyone's saying that.
Yeah, and but otherwise, it's the phone that a lot of people, if you have already liked HTC in the past, then you're like, oh yeah, I love the M9.
Do you like HTC?
I love HTC. I have a lot of memories with HTC. Let's put it that way. And yes, you're right. Being able to market properly is something that they haven't always hit the mark. They almost have never hit the mark in this most recent string of flagship smartphones, obviously. But what I give HTC a lot of credit for, and if I have to put it out this way, I give HTC my pick of the show, because by branching out, not necessarily putting all their eggs in just smartphone baskets.
How did we not give the Vive?
It's not Android. That's why.
Oh yeah.
See,
that's you're smart.
See, that's the kicker.
What is it running?
It's running off a PC.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's running off a PC. So it's a standalone virtual reality system. See, that's the thing. That's what makes... HTC made it happen that it's not even about Android, but we're talking about them so much now because of the Vive.
Yeah, but the price point you're talking about, $2-3 grand.
Well, I mean, that's not.
That's like Google Glass.
That's speculation. That's speculation. There's no one has said that. There's no price point whatsoever.
That's just from you.
Yeah, that's just what we were saying on the live stream. Like, it's probably going to be something like that. Like the overhead cost for everything is probably going to be very high. And Sasha was the one who said $2-3 grand or something like that.
No, it can't be.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, maybe with the PC.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that might be the.
If you have a badass PC, I'm sure they'll have some NVIDIA. It's Steam, right?
Yeah, it's Steam.
So Steam and NVIDIA have that connection. You know?
Yeah, it's got to piggyback off of a system you already have. But that's my point, is that we're talking so much about it, and everyone who has tried this thing, including myself, were blown away.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
VR does that to you, you know? And I know this is taking VR to a, you know, everybody's saying like that they're way ahead of Oculus because they have that, you know, verticality, they have all the gyro sensors and the lasers to be able to detect the size of your room.
Yeah.
But I always noticed, like, I remember seeing VR, Oculus, they had demos at CES where people actually had to move, you know? They were on like one of those stations where the ground moves. As you
treadmill.
walk. Yeah, but it's like a 3D treadmill. They look kind of ridiculous.
They start running, and then they're like, "I'm running."
Yeah.
No crap, you're running. Like
I think
you are physically running right now.
the Wii, right? Like, I mean, that was exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, I want to sit down and get fat. I don't want to move. So,
How do you feel about VR, Lanh? See, this is the thing. Like, yes, it's.
we could do that G3 thing. We have that plastic.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Strap it on.
Oh, sure, but it's interesting. Like, this is not an Android iteration in terms of the Vive, but it's something that we have to talk about because HTC is at the helm, and that's something we never really were expecting.
I mean, they can be at the helm, but like, you know, whether or not it actually turns into a legitimate product that people buy is a different question.
I really think, but the thing is, they have the ecosystem of Steam with almost a billion
They're just a hardware
users.
partner. I mean, like, Asus used to make Dell computers under the Pegatron brand. Then they learned from that ODM expertise in the late 80s and early 90s that they could make really good computers too, and they could cut out Dell.
Yeah.
And then Dell started using somebody else, and the rise of Asus, right?
Yeah.
I would say Asus.
There's nothing more that HTC can do but benefit from what might be a breakthrough product.
Yeah, but, you know, they could shop it around too, and they could lower the price of the hardware, and they could use other partners too that could make it. So.
Yeah. How do you feel about VR?
I mean, I think I hope it takes off. Like, it actually becomes like a thing for, because it's really awesome technology.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think for consumers to really want to hone in on it, like, it's gonna have to get smaller. Like, I think everything is still a little bit too big and a little bit too clunky looking. And then like like when we're playing with like the Gear VR, like, I just don't understand like why the straps have to be like, you have to have one on the top of your head
Yeah, you
and
gotta
then one go
spike
around.
your hair, man.
And like, my biggest complaint was that it's not hair compatible for
Yeah,
me. So it's
Goku,
like,
man.
I just want the back strap. I don't need this whole.
You're gonna need to have like a reverse mohawk just to, just to have space for this strap.
Shave it in the middle.
Like, I think if they can get it down to like the size of like ski goggles or something,
Yeah.
I think people would be like,
Contact
There's
lenses.
just so much going on, though. That's the point.
yeah, that's true.
You know, the Vive is humongous,
Yeah,
but the
they're
reason why is because it's communicating with all those lasers that are
Yeah.
basically shooting through your body and giving you radiation. I'm just kidding, but everyone. I wish that you had a chance to try it, but their scheduling for their demos was so concise and packed.
Condensed.
Yeah, condensed, thank you.
Yeah.
That, you know, it was really tough. Like, the guy who's doing the demo is in there saying the same thing every half hour. That's basically how it works.
He was looking old.
Yeah, so, you know, and God bless them for going through all of that. But the thing is, you could tell that they're really excited to see how people react to something like that. And that's the reason why I give them so much credit, is because this partnership has now revitalized the people who work at HTC.
Yeah.
You know, not to say that they were deflated before, but it just seems like there's this great energy from them because of this particular product. And if it revitalizes their entire company, more power to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Revive.
Nice. Revive HTC.
I mean, it definitely looks like they have a good product on their hands, because, I mean, I obviously haven't tried it, but everything that I've seen on it, like all the videos and all the posts that people have been writing about it, it's nothing but positive feedback.
Can I tell you all about it? Can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so you get into this like sterile room, and there's nothing but like a chair in the middle, and the chair is just there for a reference point. And they take the chair away once you put it on, so that, you know, you're just in the room. But what happens is there are two laser sensors on opposite sides of the room, or somewhere adjacent to one another at times. They don't have to be perfectly opposite, but just enough to sort of bear down and create the space that will communicate with the Vive. And then you're given two controllers, which will be wireless in the final iteration. But These two controllers are the way that you interact with the world. And it began when you put it on, they put these headphones on you and the world is gone. Like the real world is no longer a thing. Once you put it on, you are no longer where you are. And this world came up, it was just this white background, and you saw the room. Like what was once a sterile, like beige room became this steam powered place with hexagons going in and out of the floor and all this. And it said, and now granted, actually it's funny you mentioned the whole GDC thing earlier, Darcy. The presentation title said GDC demo on it.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
did they have it at GDC too?
Yeah, they had it at GDC.
I mean, the fact that it wasn't even leaked,
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive because HTC has a lot of problems with leaks, I mean, they weren't really considered to be a tier 1 purchaser of a lot of these technologies. But I think, you're totally right just about the branding, about the awareness towards the company.
Yeah. And so, that came up as a GDC demo and whatnot. And then the text is floating in the air, like to show you. They tell you, the guy is actually talking to you through the headphones. And he says, walk forward 2 steps. You see that grid? There's this mesh grid that appears right in front of your face. And it says, that is the boundary. Don't go.
You touch it?
Well, I mean, you can move your hand forward. And yes, the VR will know where the controllers are. So you basically know where your hands are in the space.
So what are the units like? Are they just the directional?
They look like Wiimotes.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, they don't look like it, but they're kind of like Wiimotes.
Have buttons or a trigger on it, or
trigger, thumb button, and the grips have you can hit the sides of the grips. So.
Okay.
So they're kind of like joysticks in a way. Like
they're joysticks, but they're not made for movement because you're the one moving around.
You're and you go up and down, all around.
Yeah,
and you're looking and it moves everywhere.
Exactly, you go everywhere.
And it's fluid as heck.
Fluid as heck. And because the processing from that PC is the one that's doing everything.
Can you see the edges of the display?
No.
So you're just completely immersed.
The world is done.
And you've tried Oculus.
Yeah, I have. For like a minute, because I actually got a little nauseous off of it.
But this didn't make you nauseous.
No, it didn't.
How comes?
I don't know why. Maybe I was in a better place.
Was it super red? Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah. But that's the whole stuff. I mean, what was the resolution like? Was it super sharp?
No, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't a super sharp display, but the latency was like zero, completely zero. And all the movements, when you moved your hands forward and the controllers were being recognized by the display, you could see yourself. You could see these floating controllers in virtual space, and that was how you were going to interact with the world. So
you see your hands?
No, you don't see your hands. You just see the controllers, but in space, based upon where your hands are.
So it tracks the controllers.
It tracks everything.
It tracks everything.
I mean, how many different types of worlds?
So they gave us like 6 worlds, right? Or 6, 5. But anyway, the first world was, they said these are the boundaries. So feel free to walk around here for a little bit and notice when the mesh comes up, and you'll know that you shouldn't be going past a certain point. So, and you'll know in these worlds that you can't go past a certain point because obviously we're going to create that boundary for you. I was like, okay, that's cool. So he said, okay, here we go into the first world. And it was an underwater, in like deep sea shipwreck. And you're walking on the deck of this like shipwrecked boat. And and all these fish are floating around you. And if you hit the trigger button on the controllers and moved your hands around, you could actually shoo the fish away. Cool. And then you're looking at what's on the ship. And you're noticing those things, and they go, "Oh, turn around!" And you turn around, there's this big whale right there, and it's right in your face. Like you feel like you could touch it. You literally do. Wow. The next world after that was a cooking thing, and it gave you instructions like Cooking Mama almost. And you were in a kitchen, and there were all these ingredients on the table, and you could. And when the controller recognitions or the controllers being recognized were turned into hands, and the triggers were you. Picking things up.
Yeah.
And you created a soup, you chopped up stuff. I picked up a plate and I threw it at the wall and it exploded.
Bad boy.
It was really fun. And they said, just go nuts in the kitchen. And then after that this is probably the one that was really great for a lot of people to realize what the utility of VR is. It was a grid, like a square, and you could move around. It was like a black room. And it was light art. So your controllers became light art. You had on the left controller the ability to rotate your wrist and see 3 different swatches to change what brush you were using, what color it was, what kind it was, and then your right hand was the brush.
Wow,
and it was just
sweet.
And it was 1-to-1. It was incredible.
Wow.
You when you're looking at your left wrist and you're like, okay, I want that color, whoop, and then these these virtual reality grids are just kind of rotating around your wrist, and you're just picking things. And then the one that everyone just were blown away by. The final demo was you being a repairman for a portal robot from Aperture.
Oh, you were Portal.
The Portal world,
Wow.
yeah. And it looked just like, you could tell, Valve created just for this. And you're trying to repair a robot, but you're doomed to fail because you don't know what to do to repair it. And then the wall caves in, and GLaDOS, the enemy from Portal, comes in. And when she came in, that robot, it's huge.
Yeah.
I was terrified.
Really?
I was immersed in this world, and seeing GLaDOS in front of me, actually talking to me and telling me that she's going to kill me, basically.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was terrified. See, they said at the beginning of the demo, if you feel nauseous or if you feel like you don't feel comfortable anymore, close your eyes and let us know, and we will take off the unit. Yeah. But what was crazy about it was that wasn't the problem. The problem was I actually lost myself in this world. And when I felt terrified, it was because of what was happening. The floor gives out under you, and only your panel is open, so you look over down to what could be your death, and you literally feel like that's what's happening.
What about like moving upwards and downwards?
Yeah, you can crouch and you can see things. You can pick up stuff off the floor.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's say you're in like the scenario where you have water. Can you go down into the water?
Well, it's
like, or is that something they have in the future?
That's something they might have in the future, but obviously it has to do with your movement. So you're not necessarily going to be jumping past the plane of the floor.
Yeah, that I guess that makes sense.
So if it was water, you'd be Jesus. You'd be walking on water. But yeah, there were times when I would be able to go underneath a virtual table and find something underneath the table, and then be able to pick it up. It was just incredible. And everyone is talking about it. Yeah. I was so skeptical about VR and all that. And all of a sudden now I'm a believer. But this iteration of it, where the world is your oyster, literally. Not literally.
But for consumers though, I mean, even if it is $1,000, like, it is going to be a lot cheaper for people to use their smartphone. And Oculus and those guys, they were saying that Samsung's been an awesome partner. Mm-hmm. They got the financing of Facebook and everything. I don't necessarily think that this should be vaporware, but I also wonder too, like, is it within our bounds that we could cover VR? I mean, we're Android Authority, sure, but like, obviously the future of entertainment and of interaction with technology is not necessarily smartphones, So, I would even ask the audience, like, would you like us to cover VR? Like, is that okay?
And I'm sure the answer is going to be yes.
I know, but
and we have an in though, because it's the phone companies that are making this.
Yeah, I just, I think that, there's already like 1.2, 1.3 billion Android phones. There will be more, in the future. It just seems like a path to entry for a lot of people if they have a great phone, that they can get a plastic Google Cardboard device. Like, Google's really good at developing ecosystems and thinking laterally and enabling partners, right? Mm-hmm. That's not to say, like, I mean, the Oculus guys, remember, like, they're saying like it'll be like an 8K display, maybe a 16K display in the future. PC hardware, they wanted us to come to Menlo Park to see their 8K. They have an 8K panel, and it's just supposed to be insane.
Yeah.
It's connected to some really badass hardware, probably like 4 GPUs running. Like, you'll hear the fans humming. Yeah. But I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
I totally agree. And like I said before, we have an in. Because, it is the phone companies, the phone manufacturers that are working on all this stuff. And that's great. That gives us the ability to say, let's see what else they're working on.
And that's why I like these, like, imagination and ARM and stuff. Because, they have the low power. They're working really hard. Like, the demos we saw at Imagination that we're running, I mean, they look super good. And I don't know. That's just where I come from.
Oh, sure. And to your point about, like, smartphones being the entry point to VR, they all have their segment in the category, but this is definitely something that's far and beyond
the premium segment.
The premium segment
is going to be laser guided.
Yeah, exactly.
Geo, whatever.
So where would you rank the Vive in terms of other VR headsets like Oculus and Morpheus?
Well, the thing is, Oculus, Morpheus, Gear VR, and they all already have case scenarios. They're all already here. It remains to be seen what the main case scenarios are going to be for an entertainment system that is essentially going to be relegated to a corner of your living room that you get to walk around. It's different. I'm viewing the HTC Vive as an extension to the future Steam console. That's what I'm viewing it as. because it's going to be about entertainment. That's what HTC called it. Is this is connected entertainment. That's what they called it. And given that Steam has so much Steam, they have so much content that if it gets converted over to this platform, it's going to be bangbusters, man. It's just going to be so great. And gangbusters is what I meant. And whoa.
Bang Bus. I'm just going to say Bang Bus. Is that still around? I want some Bang Bus Gear VR.
Oh my god. Well, you know what Sasha was talking
Let's go down the rabbit hole. Okay?
Sasha was actually talking about what if stuff like porn was the future of this VR.
Porn has always pushed the industry forward. Porn pushed cable modems, porn pushed VHS to DVD. Porn was the first to adopt 4K and 3D. Porn is going to be huge on VR. And it kind of sounds weird, but but
it's true.
There's two things people like to do. It's, communicate and copulate.
Yeah.
And those are just two fundamental desires, and often they two work in tandem. You need to communicate before you can copulate.
What's great is that wasn't even really.
You know what that means?
Yeah.
I can do this motion for you.
What's great is that all of that. What's great is that all of that is still relevant. It wasn't a tangent, but it's because it's still relevant to what we're talking about.
Man, I can't wait to get some VR porn. I'm for real, man. Or even I travel on the road all the time, and I'd like to be able to connect with my loved one.
Well, that's a case scenario that might communication using a VR thing, but whether or not it's for that kind of purpose, that's not something that we've seen yet, to be able to actually see someone in the meat space in a virtual space. And, it's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen. But, you're going to have to relegate an actual section of your room in order to have this thing. And I'm perfectly fine with that because it's basically the space in front of your game console, and I think that's actually okay. But this is the point that I put out on the live stream, and I felt so proud of myself when I said this. There's a reason why we haven't seen Half-Life 3 in a long time, and it's because this is the way they want you to play it.
That's going to be bad.
This is the way.
But I would argue
this is how they sell.
People will want to be sitting down, because you can't really see, so it's a little bit terrifying. They were just trying to show a proof of concept, and it's amazing, but, the next generation of families that are, going to be getting together and looking for entertainment at home, 15, 10 years from now, people will strap these things on, but they'll want to be connected, see each other when they look at them, and they're going to be able to download an experience, where they are, I don't know, parasailing, over Australia or whatever, and
if you can let go of the real world, the sensations of the real world, and be in that world that is in the Vive, let's say. That's perfectly possible. I imagine having a larger grid of lasers, and you have 4 people in one place. But and of course, since they're being tracked, also you will be able to see them in the world.
Yeah, people want to be connected. This I wonder what the social implications. Children these days, they don't really have the comportment, of face-to-face communications. There's a lot of anxiety and social problems that are created through technology, but I would hope that we can kind of bring it back. Even though it's an amazing experience and it's so immersive, we still need to be doing it together.
True. And I will say this also. I am a little bit worried that the world that is created in something like the Vive is so amazing that, we don't have to talk about this at length. I just want to put this idea out there that maybe... Because I don't want to say childhood, but I want to say in general, depression becomes a big thing because you just want to be there rather than where you are, and the whole social aspect does get a disconnect if you are doing it singularly, obviously. Yeah. So I do imagine that. Can you if the Michael Fisher over at Pocket Now, he was saying that when he took that thing off, he didn't want to because he wanted to be there more.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
I can't wait to get addicted.
Yeah.
Do you think you would ever get to that point?
Oh, hell yeah, man.
I think it could, because it's even a video game can kind of make you like that sometimes.
Yeah,
The Sims. The Sims.
I got so addicted.
Or even
to
just
that.
Games like Call of Duty, because you'll see people put tweets out or Facebook statuses saying, "Don't talk to me. I'll be gone for the next 3 months." Playing Call of Duty or whatever. And it's I think VR could totally do that too. So it's just
in a much more profound way.
Yeah, and it's almost I think people might lose themselves and they don't even know what's reality anymore. It's gonna be it'll be Inception or something where they don't know the difference between the real world and what's real, what's fake.
It's an incredibly real fear. I hadn't expressed it until just now. But that thought came to mind.
Imagine your grandma, right? There's someone who my grandma can't. Well, I got her computer and I set Facebook up and it's on her countertop in the kitchen. So I created her profile. Everyone can interact with her, but she just doesn't use it. But imagine putting VR onto a person from previous generations. Even our parents, right? They would just be. I don't even know what they would react like. Probably think it's just like magic, you know.
True, and it will have an equal amount of wow and an equal amount of danger.
This is terrifying.
Yeah, and
this is too much.
The gentleman who was performing the demo for me, he told me afterwards that he was actually proud of me because he said like you really get it, like you do get it, like you already started to. There was this really funny thing when I first put it on. You press a button on the right controller and this balloon all of a sudden like inflates and appears and starts to slowly float up. And he goes, you can actually touch the balloon. And so I put the other controller in my hand, and in my real hand I tried to swat at the air to see if I could hit the balloon, which was stupid. But
that's
then,
normal. Yeah,
sure. But then once I remembered, I'm in a virtual world, I hit it with the controller. Yeah. And you hear wow. And it goes out, and I was just like, "Oh man, I'm gonna do this all day."
On that, man.
It was so awesome. But he said people get it. There are people who get it, and then there are people who have this disconnect because they just kind of they let the virtual world wash over them rather than becoming a part of it. So they're standing in one place, not really realizing that they can walk around, actually see things, actually experience the world. But yeah, that was just I ended up talking about the Vive again. I've been talking about it all day ever since we did it up at the FIRA. This morning at like 10:30 or something like that.
No, there wasn't like any sort of audio with it, right?
The headphones.
Okay.
It was that immersive. I did not know. I did not know that I was in that room anymore.
Was it binaural or was it like just regular stereo audio?
That's a good question. I don't know, but it definitely had a lot of depth to it. So I could hear things that were happening like to the back right of my head. I could hear something coming, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I would have to give it's a little bit controversial for me to give a top pick to a non-Android device. So I will give it to the company that's making it. They have brought back the talk to them.
I mean, but Oculus and all those guys, they laid the foundation for this, and I mean, they are to be credited.
They are.
And frankly, I think that Oculus has a better go-to-market strategy, especially with Facebook's Unlimited than HTC does. This is a total moonshoot for them.
But like I was saying earlier, all the people who play Steam, which is close to 1 billion people, half of which are active every single day, they're going to be the first ones to buy it, and that's a lot of money already. They will have sold so much already. They put Half-Life 3 as a launch game. Oh, you're done. You are done. Yeah. But yeah, you were gonna say one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say if VR really does take off within the next 10 years or so, which we'll get within that time frame, we'll get the next gen consoles. If it does take off, we could see these even consoles having maybe a VR headset bundled in with those consoles, which would be just insane. I think.
What was that? It wasn't the Game Boy Advance, but it was the one that had
Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
The monochromatic red.
Yeah.
Man, I had that when I was 9, 8. I got so cross-eyed. I rented it, back when you could rent video game consoles.
Yeah.
And I couldn't deal with it. But this is on, obviously. That was 40 years ago.
But think about where we've come in all this time. That's crazy. It shows like this. And that's the reason why I'm so over the moon about this thing, is because for the first time in a while, for the first time since I first started working here at AA, I was actually really excited about something at a show. And I think that's...
And for people like us, it takes a lot for us to get excited.
It takes a lot, right?
Yeah, because we're just so jaded and desensitized by everything.
I like desensitized more than jaded, because I can still be excited about a phone, but it's not going to make me, it's not going to change my demeanor. It's not going to change the way that I actually act. But once I came out of that room, Darcy saw me, man. I was like...
I was thinking I could go in with you, and he's like, "Nope."
That's what I thought. I thought you were coming in with me, and then the
we only had one unit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And plus that whole experience, you need to have command of the room. Exactly. It was a small room.
Yeah, it was.
It
was a little terrifying walking in. Okay, what am I about to get into here? But I'm still excited about it. I'm still reacting to it.
As people who are inundated with new technology, have to find reasons to be excited. Not necessarily just to hype stuff up, but because, we're just kind of at the nexus, of the reception of the best-in-class technology for smartphones and tablets and all that. And, when you see a game changer like this, it reinvigorates you, And, man, I mean...
It makes me want to revisit the Gear VR and all that. Find the use cases for it. See if it's really something that is a viable solution for a lot of what we hope will be the future. Maybe it's bad that that my experience is mostly now with the Vive compared to others. Maybe it's going to be, but I do want to revisit it. But bottom line, there's a lot to be excited for at this show. You had the S6 Edge. We talked about the M9 for a little bit. The S6 to me is still the one that I would get over the Edge. And then we had the Vive and HTC finally pulling off something that we haven't seen them do in a little while, and that's make buzz, make a massive amount of buzz.
Oh yeah.
But ultimately, this was a good time.
Oh hell yeah! One of the best events I've done in a long time.
Yeah, right.
CS was like, man. IFA was pretty cool. I
love IFA. I think IFA's great.
I heard a whole bunch of oldies, and by oldies I mean like people who've been doing tech reporting for like 20 years. They were like, the gentleman in the ponytail I was overhearing, and they were talking about how they believe there's going to be a resurgence in interest towards Computex in Taiwan, because that's where like all the technology's made. Taiwan's like the economic tiger of Asia, man. Like you got so many great companies, including HTC and ASUS and Nvidia and others.
Because that's their segment. That's where they are.
I mean, the owner of Foxconn's Taiwanese. And anyway, my point is like maybe it's worthwhile for us to go because these guys are onto the VR in a way that we don't even know. So I'll dig deeper. I mean, maybe you'll be seeing some coverage from us guys. In
absolutely.
June. Taiwan's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you don't like tapas, brother.
I don't like tapas.
I'm so hungry. Yeah, tap out.
I'll tell you what, this is a great way for us to commemorate what's the end of our show, and obviously there's more content to be put out, but this is like our cap. This is our cap right here.
There's one thing though that I think deserves mentioning, which is I always think it's in terms of people. I always think it's interesting when you pay attention to what's not said. And look what we didn't talk about. Who didn't we talk about? What products didn't we talk about? Right?
Oh, there are plenty.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's because, to be fair, this is the format of this particular podcast is what was your favorite.
Yeah.
So
fair enough, but I'm just saying, that's just an interesting thought point.
Of course, yeah.
But these companies that we didn't talk about, which we don't have to talk about because we're not going to talk about, they are also in a position to be able to do really crazy stuff too.
And they are.
You think so?
Honestly, there are a lot of great things happening in the mid-range market, and there are a lot of great things happening out of even companies that have told us that they're one in particular. Sony telling us that they didn't really want to do, or they're dialing it back a little bit on the mobile space. It's not the biggest part of their. But you know what? They still came out with a pretty good-looking portfolio of things this year. A great show. Good city. I hope, Lanh, you enjoyed yourself here in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah.
And by that, I mean, did we treat you right?
Yeah.
Get back to adding some verses, brother.
Darcy drove me like a slave.
You should see the scars in his back from the whip.
That's terrible.
Well, now it's time for us to grab a bite to eat. So thanks a lot to all of you for listening to us. You can find, as I will have already said, going back in time, I'm going to be doing the intro after the fact that we are recording the crux of the body of this podcast. I hope you guys can find us all on Twitter and Instagram and Google Plus and everywhere. Find Android Authority all over the internet, on YouTube, in our forums, and at androidauthority.com. Guys, we're going to do our outro as we always do. Say it with me, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Friday Debate Podcast, this special edition, us being able to sit in front of a mic and just riff. That was a lot of fun. Maybe a couple things. Darcy's is an untethered man, so don't worry. Very enjoyable. Everything is fine. The Friday Debate Podcast, discussing topics in Android every week. This week we had MWC, and we were reporting to you, or rather doing this podcast live from our apartment. We never stay at the same place twice.
Never.
Yeah. So
it's impossible to get the same one twice.
Exactly. So I like to have these moments where we get to sort of commemorate the place that we called home for a number of days. But in any case, please stay tuned to Android Authority for even more, because, as you know already, we are your source for all things
Android.